Hi everyone, welcome to the first OnTap tutorial video. I'm Rebecca and I'm going to introduce you to some of the tools and basic functions of Quark 8. This video will focus on all of the main tools you'll use when designing and show you how to bring in text and photos to your project. So let's begin by opening a new project. I've already started Quark because sometimes it'll take it a couple seconds to load, so if you're following along, just give it a minute and you should see the screen soon. This window always pops up whenever Quark opens, and it'll give you a list of recent projects that you can click on to get back to what you were working on last, or you can just go to the middle to create a new project, and we always just create a new project. So you can click here, or if somehow you close this window, it's no big deal. Just go to File, New Project, and notice your keyboard shortcut is just Control-N. Okay, so whenever you go to open a new project, this layout window is always going to pop up. You can name it whatever you like, or you don't have to change it. Whenever you save the file later, you can give it a name. We always do 8.5 by 11, just standard letter size. That's the format for our magazine. We have 1/2-inch margins and just one column for now. If we need more columns in your text, you can add that later. So basically, you're just going to use the default settings. I'm going to click OK, and now I have a page. So this is my page for my first layout. So before we really get started, I just want to look around a little bit and show you some of the tools that we have on both sides here and across the bottom. So on the left side, this is called your tools box, and you can, if you don't see it, you can bring it up by hitting F8 or just by going to your window and clicking on tools. So you see the shortcut is F8. Alright, so this first thing is your item tool. It's this little crosshair. I'll always refer to it as crosshair because that's what I call it. I'm just clicking and dragging it right now, and you can see it doesn't really do much of anything at this point, but it is the one tool that selects things, that grabs them, and that will move them around, and you have to have your crosshair selected to move anything. But let's go ahead and move on and make a text box. So this is your text content tool, and you can create text boxes with this and then fill them with, text. So I clicked and dragged, and you saw it takes a little while. Sometimes the program is just a little slow. It might run faster on a different computer. So we've got a text box, and I actually have a little text here. This will be my body text. As you can see, I'm just going to copy this, so I copied it all, and I'm going to paste it in over here. That way we can kind of have this whole text to work with. So it's pretty long. Alright, so you can just put some text in there and you can edit it and everything while it's in here. I do recommend typing everything in Word and then copying and pasting it into Quark for several reasons. And you'll see a lot of those reasons a little bit later in this tutorial and in later tutorials. So you do have to have your text content tool selected in order to come in here and edit it. But notice I can't, if I click on it, I can't move it. So you have to have your crosshair selected to move anything. But if I have my crosshair selected and I do want to edit it, if you double click, notice it went straight back to the text content. So I've got my crosshair tool selected. I'm moving it around, but now I need to edit it, so I'm just going to double click and it goes straight to using the text content tool. Sometimes a window will pop up that says double click, do you want this to mean, edit? And just click OK, and that'll let that happen. Alright, so we're going to leave this here for a second and go look at some other things. This red box down here means that there's text that is not showing in this box, and we know it because we saw the very long fake article that I put in here. So not all of my text is in this box, but I need my box to only be this big. So I can make another box though just for my layout's sake, I need this space in between, and so I want half my text here and half my text here. If you go into your text content tool and click and hold, then these other options will come up. So you have to click and hold it. I'm still holding down. And then while you're holding, you can move over to this little links that are connected, and then you can let go. And so now we've got the text linking tool. I can link these two text boxes so that whatever text doesn't fit in this one will automatically flood over into this one. And you can link as many text boxes as you like. That way, if you have a certain idea of what size you want your text box to be, you can put all your text boxes in there and then put your text in and then link them together so that the text will just flow from one to the other without you having to copy and paste it back and forth until you get it right. So I'm just going to click on the box that has text in it, and then I'm going to click on the empty box where I want the rest of it to flood over, and it automatically links them. And so notice I do still have a little bit of text left, so I'm going to go back again. I'm going to click and hold and drag over to the text tool. I'm going to create another box, click and hold, go to the link tool, and now this one is the one that holds the text that I need to flood over. So I'm going to click onto this one, and notice this relationship comes back up. It's going from the end of this box to the beginning of this box, and then I want it to go from the end of this box to the beginning of this box. And there's still a little bit left, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So notice they draw these fancy little arrows for you to show you which box is going where, so you can keep everything in order also. And then if you want to unlink them, click and hold and drag over to the unlink box, and then shift and click on the one that you want empty. So I'm holding down shift on my keyboard, and I'm just going to click this first one. So now the first one is empty, and it's pushed it into the second one and then in the third one. I'm going to just undo that. And so say that I want the second one empty, then I've got my tool again, holding down the shift, I'm going to click this box, and now my link has gone straight from the first box to the third box. So again, I'm going to undo that. And your keyboard shortcut for undo is just Control and Z. So if you see me just say I'm going to undo something and then I don't go to edit, it's because I'm just hitting Control and Z. So we have a whole bunch of text now. So I'm going to leave this text for a little while. I think I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one because I need room to show you guys some other things. So I've got, with my crosshair, I've selected it, so, I can move it. And you'll know it's selected because these little boxes come up all around it. I'm just going to hit delete on the keyboard. Well, if I'm actually... Okay, crosshair, got the box selected, now hit delete. So I'm going to scroll down, we'll go back to the text stuff a little later. So the next up is the picture content tool. I'm going to select that and click and drag, and it's making a box like the rest, except this one has an X in it. So if you don't have a photo right now, but you need to save space for a photo, you can always just put in a box and leave it alone. And then later you can go in and add a picture. So if you've got your picture box, just right click on it and you'll see import, and then you can import a photo into it. So whenever you click import, your dialog box automatically is going to open up, and I'm going to put some kittens and mittens into this box for you guys because that's adorable, right? It's all covered in marshmallows. So a couple things to notice at this point. We have the box that I drew that is this outside box, and it's got the little squares around it. But then we have the picture that I imported, and it's got the little round circles all the way around instead of boxes. Think of these as two separate items almost. So you've got a picture and then you have a frame. So they can work together, but they can also work separate. If I'm still on the picture content tool and I start dragging things around, then notice how up here you can't really see it. That's because this part of the picture is outside of the frame. If you import a picture and you want to just make the box fit the picture, or you wanted the picture to be that big, just right click, and first you can scale the picture to the box. So it's not going to be the same size as the box, it's going to be as big as it can be inside the box. It's going to keep the same proportions, and so we'll see that. So now notice how it's scaled. This is as big as this picture can be. It went the width, but we still have some room on the height. So I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to fit my box to my picture so that now it's completely the same. Alright, so now I want to move it. Well, I'm still on the picture content tool, so I'm still only moving the picture within the frame. So I'm just going to scale picture to box again to get it back in the center. To actually move it, you have to go back to your crosshair. And so now you see I can move it around. Again, like with the text, if I want to edit the picture again, I can just double click and notice the blue circles pop back up. That means that I'm editing the picture. So say that this box hasn't really been working out. It's a little too big or a little too small, and I need to change the size of the picture because I've got more room to fill up or less room than I thought I would. So you want to work with these blue circles, and if you're on the picture tool, that's going to be the default. Even though it looks like you're about to grab the blue or the white square to change the box, if you are clicked on the picture content tool, you're going to be editing the picture. So I'm going to undo that real quick. Whenever you change the size of a picture, you want to hold down Shift on your keyboard because that will keep the scale the same. So I'm holding Shift and I'm just going to bring the height down, and notice how the sides come in also because it's scaling the picture so I don't get that where it's all squished and misshapen. So again, I'm going to undo with Control Z, and you can take it from any angle. I'm going to let go of my mouse click, let go of Shift, and now I'm going to fix my box to the picture again. So that is the picture tool. That's everything it can do. So next we've got the shape tool, and if you click and hold on that, you see we've got plenty of cool shapes here. So just gonna again click and drag, and I've made a fun new shape. You can do a number of things here. Over on the right hand side, we could add a color in there just to make it some cool color, or we could also put a picture in here by right clicking again and clicking import, and then we can put more kittens in mittens, and this time it can be in a little starburst. So again, I'm holding Shift to make the picture a little bigger, but to keep it proportioned. And now I'm just moving the picture around in the frame to kind of get it where I want it to be. And then I'll click outside, and all of that extra kind of goes away. So we can see just what the picture is, and then everything that's outside of the frame is gone. If I want to, I don't really like how I got a bunch of marshmallows here, and then my kitten just feels kind of stuffed in there, right? Marshmallows stuffed, it's kind of a joke. So again, I'm going to go to the crosshair because I don't want to change the picture anymore. I want to change my frame. So I want my frame to be a little wider on both sides. And I know this is the bottom. If I pull it down, I'm outside the picture. Just want to make it a little wider to get a little bit more of the picture in the frame. Okay, that's adorable. Alright, and you've got all kinds of shapes. If you want to just make a square, you can do that too. I'm going to go back to the crosshair. Now this is selected, and I'm going to hit delete to get rid of it. Okay, then we've got the line tool, which is pretty self-explanatory. Click and drag and you got a line. That's what that tool does. It makes a line. Okay, then there's this select point tool. And if you click and hold, a bunch of other things pop up, and I honestly have no idea what any of them do except for this. I know what the select point tool does. Alright, so I'm going to come over here, and I've clicked away from the line, and now I'm going to double click on the line. And what I'm hoping happened is I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and I'm going to, alright, this is not working. Okay, so I think that did it. Yes, so double click, and now I'm just pushing the line around. And you see I'm getting this cool little curve. What also happens is this little line comes off the edge of the line, and this is what's actually manipulating my curve. So I can, make it go wherever I want. And curves are kind of cool if, you're separating sections and you want something more interesting than just a little plain line. You can put a cool curve in there. And whenever you click away, all you're left with is the curvy line. So I like that tool. Then there's a table tool, and that's pretty self-explanatory also. It's just like in Word, you just import a table. So you draw the box however big you want it to be, however many rows and columns you want, and then you get it in there. And you can play with how big the boxes are within the grid. Since it's selected, I'm going to hit my crosshair and hit delete on the keyboard just to get that out of the way. So then finally the last tool over here is the zoom tool. And this obviously zooms in, and then if you hold Alt on the keyboard, that will zoom out. Somehow it zoomed in very far. Okay. And then, so I had to zoom out a lot there. Instead of, clicking this multiple times to zoom in or holding down Alt and clicking multiple times to zoom out, there are a couple of keyboard shortcuts that are really useful here. To fit your whole project on the screen, you hold down Control and hit 0. And then to make it the actual size, it's Control 1. So it's Control 0 to zoom out, Control 1 for actual size. I like to Control 0 so that I can kind of see what my whole layout looks like, and then I Control 1 to kind of play with the text or make sure that things are lining up correctly. And you don't have to be on any specific tool to do that. I'm on the crosshair, I can Control 1, Control 0. So I've got my crosshair, I'm just going to delete some of this stuff to get it out of the way a little bit. So let's Control 1 to get back to the text. And I'm going to make this first box a little bigger so that we can play with it a little bit more. And notice again that because these are linked, as I'm manipulating this box, putting more text in it, less text is going in that one. And if I pushed this up and still had the other box down there, it would all flow directly into that box. So let's look at the bottom. This is our measurements bar. If it's not showing, or if you accidentally click the X, no big deal. Window, measurements. Notice the keyboard shortcut is F9. So if you hit F9 on your keyboard, you can make it go away and come back. Alright, so I'm going to click on my text. I'm going to double click so that I'm actually editing the text. And notice when I double click, all this stuff comes up. So if I'm not clicked on anything, there's nothing down here except for the XY axis showing me my location. If I click on the text box while I'm in text content tool, a bunch of stuff comes up. So let's look at this for a second. We've got the position. You also have the width and height. If you have a specific measurement, I've never put in a specific measurement for a text box or a photo frame. But if you were, had a very meticulous design, you could do that. We've got angle here, so if you want to tilt your text, you can tilt your text. We've got columns, so this is where we can add columns in the text. So you don't have to add columns whenever you start. And you don't have to make 14 different text boxes because you want several columns. You can just put text columns in there. And notice it already has a nice gutter in between each of the columns. I'm going to go ahead and put this back onto 1. Then you can play with the background color if you so choose. Generally, I try to stay away from it. And I will show you guys some of the more advanced things that I do whenever I want color behind a text in some of the other later tutorials. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that back on none. So you can play with that. That was the shade, and then you can also play with the opacity of it. And then you can flip it horizontal or you can flip it vertically. I guess if you're doing something with a mirror, that would be kind of cool. Otherwise, you don't really want a bunch of backwards text, so might not be the most helpful tools, but they are there. Okay, this is a very helpful tool. The line between the space, or the space between the lines, sorry, the space between the lines is called your leading. And in magazine design, it's pretty important because you want your readers to have a place where their eyes can rest. And that place is any white space. Any space on the page that does not have text or a picture is your white space, and you want a lot of it. I always change the leading up about 3 points. So I'm just going to Control A to select all my text, and notice it will select all the text in the other text boxes. And I'm going to just up this 3 spots. Notice how much difference that is of space between the lines. So if I go back down 3, they're really close together, and then up 3. It's not a huge amount of space. You know, you might not even notice it if I hadn't, just pointed it out, but you can see the difference, and it makes it a lot easier to read the words. You can also put space in between the letters, and I use this sometimes for titles, if I want my title to go all the way across the page, but I can't quite. It's between 12 point and 14 point font, but I want it to go a little bit farther. I'll spread them out just a little bit. So I'll just show you what that looks like. I guess you could do it for emphasis also, but it's kind of weird. And I definitely wouldn't do it in just your body text. I'm going to bring this back down to 0. Apparently deleted an M at some point. So then you've got your general alignment, and you guys are all familiar with these, and then your text font and size, different styles that you can use. Bold and italics are the popular ones, but we have some other things here. So again, Control A to select all the text, and I'm going to change this to Georgia because that's the font that we use, and normally we're between 12 and 14 font. Okay, so I've made this 14 up from 12, so now I need to up my leading a little bit. I'm going to put it up on 19. Feel good about that. You can put all kinds of different styles on your text, whatever you like. I use those mostly for pull-out quotes or titles. You can change your color here. There's plenty of different colors. You can always make a new color. And then you can play with the shading and the opacity of the color of your text. So that's just the classic bar in the measurements. We've got a ways to go. You can go on to the text one, and some of this stuff is going to repeat. We've got the angle again, we've got columns again. There's a different alignment here. You can align it at the top of the box, at the bottom, or in the middle. You won't see a difference if I clicked on that in this one because my text fills the box completely. But if you had a box that didn't have text completely, you could make it go to the top of the box, to the bottom of the box, or in the middle. Or you could justify it, and so there would be a bunch of space in between each line. So the next one is your frame. I don't recommend putting a frame on a text box, and you'll see why whenever I put one. I'm just going to click away. Whenever you put a frame around a text box, it gets very close to the text, so there's not a lot of white space. Again, in a later tutorial, I'll show you how I put boxes around text or colors behind text. But for right now, I just want to show you that you can put a frame on things. I frame all of my pictures, generally with a 2-point frame, and that's how you do it. And whenever you get your frame on there, you can got all kinds of different designs. And I'm just going to make that bigger so that we can kind of see it. So then you've got your frame color, and I'm going to make it cyan, but then you also have your gap color. And the gap is, if you have a broken frame, you can fill it in so that it looks really pretty. Now it looks like neon lights. And as always, you can play with the opacity, so the dots get a little bit more blue when they're 100%. I'm just going to leave that on there for now. Even though I don't really like frames around text boxes, I'm just going to leave that there for now. Then the next thing is your runaround. Your runaround is what pushes text away from whatever box has the runaround. So I do this with all of my images, but I'll do it with this text box also. I normally just put a 5-point runaround unless it's still too close. But notice whenever I bring this text box, I'm just going to inch it over using my directional keys on the keyboard. When I start inching it over, and of course it's not working, I'm going to right click and bring this to the front so that it's the foremost thing and everything behind it has to move out of the way. There we go. So notice it keeps pushing the text away and away. If I go down far enough, there we go, that line above it gets to come on down. But if I get too close, it'll get pushed over because of the runaround. And so that's very important for your pictures, because just like you don't want your text to be touching your outline, you don't want your text to be touching your pictures. You want plenty of white space around everything. Then we have alignment. So let's see, space and align. Let me get back in this text. There we go. I know we're missing some things. So we've got character attributes, which is going to show, you've got text things again, so that's on the classic. And then we've got paragraph attributes, which again, a lot of this stuff is on the classic. We've got leading and alignments. But what is cool about here is you can hit drop caps, and you guys have probably seen this in a lot of novels and stuff. Just watch this first word. I'm just going to hit drop cap. And bam, isn't that pretty? So this is how they do it. This is how they get the big first letter, and then it automatically goes on after that. You just drop cap. So you don't have to try to select the first letter and then make it, really large, which is going to just make it look weird because the rest of the text isn't going to be up there. So that's a really nice thing to do sometimes. If you just want to bring a little bit of emphasis to the first few lines, you can drop cap. Okay, so now space and align. Again, a lot of things that you saw from the classic tab. We've got where we are, how big we are, and how many columns, and what angle I'm at. All that stuff is there. What's cool about this is if I click this little bitty piece of paper, let's see, it's page relative mode. Click that, and then these options come available. So now I can align it to the edge, which you might want to do with a picture, probably not a text, because some of it might get cut off. But if you had a picture that you wanted to go all the way to the edge, you can hit a button. If you want something perfectly centered on the page, you don't have to try to eyeball it. You just come to page relative mode and click center. If you want it centered vertically, then you can do that with the other. So you could center it horizontally and vertically, and get it right in the middle of the page. It's perfectly centered. There's no math involved. You know, you don't have to try to eyeball it. It is perfectly centered. If you wanted these two to be relative somehow, you can hold shift. So I've got I'm just going to do crosshairs here. I'm going to select this one, hold shift, and select the other one. So now they're both selected. Notice got boxes around both of them. If I can move both of them together. Again, that's click one, hold shift, and click the other. And now I could also do this item relative mode. So I can make them centered to one another. Notice how the first one that I click moves to the second one. So if I click this one first, and then I hold shift and click the second one, now the little box is going to move. Or not. There we go, it did. Okay, so now, they're just moving along there together. Okay, so those are just moving relative to one another. So I've centered them, and I've gotten them both at the top and put them both at the bottom. So if you're just trying to line things up perfectly, you can do it that way. Alright, so the last little thing down here that we have, I'm going to go back into text and make sure. So you can set tabs if you like. I generally don't tab anything. I put spaces in between paragraphs. Obviously you wouldn't want to drop cap all of them. So then the last thing is drop shadow, and that's a cool effect. Put a shadow on it. Again, probably not something I would do with text, but you can definitely do it with a photo just to give it a little bit of depth. And you can play around with what color it is and how opaque the drop shadow is. You can move it around. Let me make this a little bit darker. Yeah, you can see it moving around the box. So you can put your drop shadow wherever you like it. You can move it away. It's getting a little bit farther away from my text. And now you can see how it moves a little bit easier. You can change the angle on it, and you can change the size on it. So your drop shadow can be a lot bigger than the text that it is. Okay, and so that's the measurements toolbar. So all that's left then is the colors and page layout. You probably won't use style sheet, and yours might be in a different order. It's not a big deal. Like the others, you can just come to your window. Colors is F12, page layout is F4. So with colors, you can create a new color. Notice there's no red. So if I need a red, I will use my Roy G. Biv, as they call them. So red, green, blue. And I just take out all the green and all the blue. And it's a little bit bright, so I might bring it down a little. And then you can call it red. And so now notice I have red. So say that I like my little kitten and I want to put a frame around it. Put me a 6-point frame. And I can make it red now to match his cute little mittens. And so now, of course, the frame moves with the picture. So you can also, say I'm clicked over here, I could put a frame here around this text, or I can make a background color. So you can do that here. And as always, if you do have a background color, you can change the shade, and you can change the opacity. So that's pretty much the colors. The last thing I want to show you in this tutorial is once you have your first page, making a second page. It's the easiest thing to do, and it took me forever to figure it out. So over here in the page layout, you have this little thumbnail of page 1. Right click on that, insert page, You can insert however many you think you're going to need. Generally, I start with 2 pages and work from there. And then click this and grab and drop it over by the first page, and voila, it pops up right there. And now you can start moving things over here. And if you look back at the alignment, now you can align things for the whole spread instead of just the one page. So if you want something in the middle there, which would be kind of weird unless it was like a huge image, you don't really want to separate text across the break, because then it's going to get lost in the design. Okay, so that is the first tutorial video. I hope that you guys feel a little bit more comfortable with some of these tools and creating text boxes and bringing pictures in. A lot of the shortcuts that we talked about I will use in other videos, so if you've forgotten something, just come back to here. I'll explain it. I probably won't show it in as much detail. So yeah, thanks, and I hope this helps. And I hope that you guys will enjoy your time with OnTap and come back to this video, because it's a very extensive look at all these little tools that can be kind of confusing sometimes.